All right. All right, guys. So tonight we're talking about something we've already kind of gone over. It's marketable elements. This stuff comes from filmireland.net. It's letter D in the syllabus. Right there. All right. So marketable elements for a film are the main things about the movie that will make people want to see it. They can include the cast. If there's like big actors in it, people that people want to see, they're going to go see that movie because that actor's in it. That is something you can market to people, market to an audience to get people to come see it. So the cast is marketable. The director, if it's a well-known director, if it's a director who's done projects before that has some kind of audience, any kind, they can be used in the marketing as a marketable element. Producer, same thing, or any other above the line crew. The film genre, certain genres are going to be marketable just because people like to see them. People like horror films, people like action films. If it's one of the more common genres that are marketable, that are like the ones that market well, like action films, then that can be one of the draws. That can be a marketable element in itself. Any festival selections or awards that the film has received, that can be a marketable element because that can draw in people to, oh, why did they win awards? Obviously, it must be something worth watching. So you market that to people. Box office results. That's why you hear whenever you have a film that comes out that has a good box office, you hear about it all over the place. But when it doesn't have a good box office, it's very quiet because they're not trying to market that out. But when it does have a good box office result, and there's a lot of people seeing it, especially when it's getting up there in those top 10, top 20, top 100, whatever, they start really taking notice and pushing it out there because it shows that a lot of people are going to see it. Also, you see in other markets how it's doing. If it's doing really well, then they'll market that. They'll use that as a marketable element. Reviews, any good reviews that it has, quotes and stuff like that. You see that all the time. The IP it's based on, which is the intellectual property. If it's, a famous book or a famous show that's converting into a movie, or a movie that's converting to a show, or a video game that's now becoming a show or something like that, that is something that obviously is very marketable to those fans who already like that particular intellectual property. So these are the things. The marketable elements are the things that are positive about the film that will help generate interest. And usually these marketable elements are used across the marketing campaign. If you had a big named actor in your film, you probably would include them in the poster, the trailer, and in interviews or behind the scenes to utilize the fact that you have them in your film to help sell the tickets, the rentals, or to streaming services. You see this all the time, even when a film doesn't have that. If they have a big named actor, but they're not in it that long, they still market them. They still put them in a lot of the stuff just because they are in it and they will draw a crowd. It might only be in 5 minutes of the movie, but they're still going to be on the poster. They're still going to be in the trailer for whatever clips that they have, just because they are going to draw in a crowd. They're a marketable element. So they're used across the board. If your film, like I said, is an action film, but maybe it has a heartfelt dramatic moment or a few heartfelt dramatic moments, you may use those marketable elements to promote it as both an action film and as a drama in other moments. So you might promote it as an action film to the crowd that you believe like action films, and then you'll promote it as a drama to the crowd that likes drama films. You wouldn't explicitly say it's a drama if it's an action film, if it just has some dramatic moments in it, but you might use the dramatic scenes and the bits that have drama in them to promote it to a separate target market on some other platforms. We've discussed all this before, but you need to try to include elements like this that are marketable so that you have a marketable product at the end. You may have an excellent idea and an amazing film, but just because it's good doesn't mean that it is going to be marketable. Some films are more marketable than others. So you may not be able to hire the big named actors, so the cast wouldn't be a marketable element in that case. If people don't know who they are, then don't push them out there everywhere, because it's not going to do the same thing it would as if it were a big actor. The only reason we see those big actors' names everywhere is because they're big actors. And then when you have the independent films that use the actors they have, even if they're not known, and they're still trying to use them like they're big actors, it kind of has the opposite effect. It makes people think of it as more amateurish, because they're like, who's that? I've never heard of them. Why are they putting their name in the forefront of the trailer if they're just an unknown actor? So you want to watch out for that and only use the marketable elements that are actually going to draw in more people, not just copy the big movies, the big marketing schemes that bigger films do when they have those actual marketable elements. If you don't have a big name director, don't throw the director's name everywhere. You can put the director's name somewhere, but you don't have to put it like so out in front like you would if you got Steven Spielberg to come direct your film. Then of course you're going to use his name all over the place in your marketing, because that's a huge draw. But if it's just some person that nobody's heard of, you shouldn't use them in the same way that you would if you had someone like Steven Spielberg or anyone. Obviously he's like at the top, but anyone mid-tier or higher, you wouldn't do the same thing if they were lower tier or unknown, especially if they're a first-time director. So because we're doing independent films, though, we might not have those big named actors. We might not have any well-known cast. So if that's the case, you need to find other stuff that is marketable. Find the best dialogue that you have, the visuals or special effects, if you have any, if they're good, not if they're subpar or if they're crappy, only if they're good. Or maybe you have good scenery or cinematography. Maybe you have an action scene that you did well, or a unique detail, or a unique plot point, or, etc. Any of those can be used as your marketable elements, as long as it was well done. So for independent films, you really have to pick and choose the best parts of your film, the best line of dialogue, the best joke, the best performance from the actors. If they're not that great for the whole movie, but for some scenes they did really well, you really want to emphasize those really well done scenes as much as you can in the trailer and in the behind the scenes and stuff like that. You want to showcase your best work to try to market it. Those are going to be the marketable elements for you. Those are going to be the ones that draw people in to come see it because it looks good or it sounds good, or maybe the music is good. You have a good musical score. Whatever you have that's good, utilize it and use it to market your film better, because that'll draw in a bigger audience than using something that isn't actually marketable, like an unknown actor, an unknown director. You just want to use the stuff that best represents the film and put its best foot forward for marketing. If you have a mediocre action scene, don't use that in your marketing as a marketable element. Just because it's there doesn't mean you should use it. Make sure it's good and cool and will draw an audience in. It's visually interesting. If your film has no marketable elements, then that's when you might have to throw something together that isn't necessarily marketable. However, you can also focus on other aspects in those instances, like making fantastic key art to represent the film, utilizing the key art when possible to market the film instead of parts of the film itself. If you ended up making a film that was kind of like, I don't know which part of this is the best, I don't know which part is really that great, we only had $5,000 for the whole thing, so nothing really looks that great or sounds that great, but I'm still proud of it. In those instances, you might want to try to utilize something like key art to help market the film. Use that as your marketable element. Yeah, you'll have a trailer and you can't really get around that, but you can try to showcase your key art or showcase your behind the scenes if you had a good behind the scenes or a making of that you did well. That stuff you can utilize a little bit more than the actual film itself if the film itself isn't doesn't have these marketable elements, doesn't have anything that's uniquely stands out or like that was extremely well done. Then you want to try to find a way around that to market it as best you can. Um, where was I at? Before making a film, you want to think about what could make it stand out, though. So if you haven't made your film yet, definitely think about what you could use to make it stand out. Think about the main marketable elements that are in it or that could be added, and then pay extra attention to those moments, scenes, or aspects to be sure to get them right. So any moments or scenes or aspects that you think would stand out, if you do have an action scene and it's your only one in the film, then you might want to spend extra time, extra effort, making sure that you get it done right. If you only have a smaller budget, which most of the time we will with independent films, you might want to utilize more of it on that important aspect because that might be your only marketable element in your film. That's the thing that makes it stand out, or that's the thing that you need to make sure you get done well. Any pivotal, any like important pivotal scenes, those are the ones that you need to pay extra attention to whenever you have a very limited budget and your script overall doesn't really have any marketable elements. Then you need to spend extra time on those certain aspects that are going to make it stand out when you're done. And that's something that why you want to start thinking about marketing before you actually film, before you get into principal photography, before you even get into pre-production. While you're in development, you want to be thinking about marketing. And that's because you can then add something into the script that might be marketable, as long as hopefully it matches your film. Or you can figure out these parts that would draw people in. Ooh, I really like this scene. The way they're speaking to each other feels very realistic and it's very good dialogue. Then that might be a scene that you pay extra attention to for the performances from the actors. Make sure they're well rested. Make sure it's like you have a day separate just for that main scene because that is a moment that you can use later in the trailer because it has very good dialogue that shares the message of the scene, or there's these pivotal moments where the actor is going to be very upset or they're going to have a very big fight or a very big dramatic emotional moment. Those are the things, again, you want to make sure that you give it the time needed, that you rehearse it the most to make sure that that will turn out well, even if everything else doesn't turn out as good as you hoped. You make sure you get those moments done well so that you can market those moments, because it's all about getting people to come in when you're marketing. All you're trying to do is sell tickets with marketing, trying to represent your film and get it awareness, but you're also trying to get your money back. You're trying to get people to buy tickets or rent it or go watch it on a streaming service or whatever it may be. But if your project is already done, then you want to think about what the marketable elements are and search or find them. And again, if you don't have them, then you want to create some if you haven't found any that can be used as marketable elements. And that again would be something like your key art, or maybe you can throw together a really good trailer from this film, even if there's nothing spectacular that you can find within the film itself. You can still, there's ways to go around it by making a good trailer. So maybe you want to spend a little bit of extra time and money getting a person who knows how to edit trailers to edit a trailer for you so that they can make an actual really good one that can draw people in. So these are things you want to think about when you're marketing. You have to kind of step back out of the film and look at it from a marketing standpoint. You kind of have to look at it from an outside perspective, outside looking in. What would make you actually want to go see that film? You know, what's the main draw to this film? What's the best part of it? And then use those moments in the marketing itself. And those are your marketing your marketable elements. Does anybody have anything to add or questions or anything for marketable elements?
I have something. something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, film festivals and awards are good. I guess, I don't know, just something sits with me the wrong way when the film is like boasted in a specific way. Like if you notice, like certain movies will come out and you'll see the trailer on TV and it's like the #1 movie in America. But then another movie is, the same, different movies, oh, this is the #1 movie. I'm like, so which one is the #1 movie in America? That's a bold statement.
You mean it feels like a gimmick, like false advertising?
Yeah, I feel like they're not reading it. It's the argument between, when you get a bad review on Rotten Tomatoes or a bad review on IMDb, but you can't go by, those critics, they don't know what they're talking about, but it's kind of like one of those things, you know what I'm saying? They're looking at the numbers and not really looking at the audience's actual reaction to the film.
Right.
So they're using that as the
Yeah, I get it. It can definitely come off as like, it comes off a little gimmicky and a little like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, when I see those, and it's usually like on like movies that aren't really excited, I'm not really excited to go see. You didn't see that for any of the Batman movies or any of that stuff. But I guess it's like if they don't get a good opening night or good enough, then I guess they'll put that trailer out there. Oh, the #1 movie in America.
I always think it's a gimmick when I see like, oh, 80% not 80 or 90% Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, yeah, for the first week or for the first few days, that doesn't mean anything. Like that's my first thought whenever I see movies that have that. And it makes me think that the movie must not be that good if it needs to rely on that for people to think it's good. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. It makes plenty of sense.
Yeah, no, it does, because they always they utilize it like, oh, it's 100% Rotten Tomatoes, but that's because only one person reviewed it.
Yeah, like I can't. You know what I'm saying? When they put the Rotten Tomatoes up there, I'm like, well, I can't take that seriously. I can't at all. And then they'll use
feels like you're grasping at straws.
But it's like I don't think I've seen a 10 out of 10 on IMDb. I think even The Godfather had like a 9 or 8 review.
Yeah, that's tough.
So, yeah, I think it's like a 9, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a 10.
The highest I've seen on Rotten Tomatoes is like 97.
Yeah.
I've never seen higher.
Well, I think the way Rotten Tomatoes works is as long as the critic reviews it 60% or over, then it's counted as a fresh tomato. And if it's less
that
than
Rotten
60%,
Tomatoes is really gimmicky.
And so it's like 97% of people thought it was 60% or better. So that's how you get those numbers, and that's why it looks like, whoa, 97%. That's almost 100. But it's like,
and
that's
apparently they
thought it was better than half. There's no. It's not like the star rating or the 10 or the 1 to 10 ratings or any of that. It's more just like, did somebody think it was better than average? If it was, then they add up all the people who thought it was better than average, and that's where you get your percentages, I think.
And then you have percentage boosters. Like
and apparently even for you to review it, there's
people out there that you can pay them, and then they'll that's their thing. Like they'll get you, somehow they'll boost your views and your reviews and stuff, but it's all like robots doing it.
Yeah.
And it'll be like all fake. You could pay people to do that. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? Yeah, it's like they'll get like 100 people to go make fake accounts, and then they'll just go and view your YouTube channel, or they'll give you a rating on IMDb or something like that. But it'll be generic. It wouldn't be, it would just be like those profiles with no pictures on it, just generic reviews. Oh, this, and then, you could tell by the spelling. This movie awesome. Like you could just tell by the review. Like, oh my gosh, who wrote this?
You can totally tell when you go in there. I like reading reviews and you see the same one over and over again, and it's generic as hell. And it's like,
It's awesome. Just awesome. Totally awesome.
This movie.
Yeah, exactly.
America #1 movie.
There's also people who've like found they like you said, the bots, where it's like they have the same, it might be a very long and seemingly detailed review, but then you see it 17 more times, the same exact wording, spelling, everything's the same. And so then it's like, oh, so they just, bots are doing it. They're putting out the same exact message over and over and over.
you see 5 or 6 of the same review. Yeah, happens so much.
Yeah. So there's definitely ways to that. The more money that they have, they just pay people off, or they pay bots, or they do that to try to up the numbers, which,
So even if you do have good reviews, that is a hard balance to find though, right? Because if it's an independent film, you kind of rely a little more on reviews and on awards, because that way you show legitimacy in a way. So it does have like a higher name, or it is higher credibility, so to speak, in that aspect, because people are like, oh, it won awards, then it must be good because it's an independent film, and people like most people that aren't that into film will take that as a sign that it's really good or whatever. But it is a hard balance to find, because if your entire thing is just, oh, look at how many awards we won, look at the high score on IMDb, like you don't let your film speak for itself, but you also want to show that it has some credibility as an independent film, and to get more people to watch it. So it does seem like kind of a hard balance to find when you're in the indie space.
Well, I will say with independent films, like if you have a film that is getting rated well, then you definitely want to utilize that for marketing, because it works. That's the reason we see it, is because it works. So, if you are getting people to, that's why you want to ask people to rate it. You don't want to ask them to leave a good review. You just want to say, hey, leave a review, please. And, everybody who watches it, please leave a review. It really helps us out. And that way, if you start getting a lot of good reviews, you can utilize that in your next phase of marketing to say, it's getting rated like this. We have an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, or we have an 8 out of 10 on IMDb, or 7 out of 10. Or
so
whatever.
In your opinion, it shouldn't be the first, like your main thing. It should be like a secondary ad or a secondary.
Well, it's hard for
like
independent films to get those ratings beforehand, because press aren't as interested in doing pre-screenings and stuff in independent films. So it depends. If you can get them, then yeah, you do want to use them if you're getting good reviews. And also,
but how much of your
stuff like that.
Promotion should be that?
That's up to the film. That's up to the person to decide.
No, I'm just asking in your opinion.
For how much of the marketing should be reviews?
Yeah, let's say you did the festival run and now you're marketing it to wider audiences, and you have a few awards or a few festival. Either they did well in those festivals, or they were nominated, or they even won a few things, or they were in some good festivals. At what point or how much in the marketing would you mention that, in your opinion, do you think?
For me, if it's in a bigger festival and it's getting awards, then put that at the forefront of everything, because that is important. If it's in like a small, like, some little tiny town that has 500 people in it, and it got, best screening, or best film, best audience pick, or whatever, yeah, you can mention it, but I wouldn't put it in the forefront in that point. So I guess it just depends on like what it is, especially if it's just like a selection compared to actually winning the award. Because I see independent films use selections all the time, just being like, oh, we were selected, but you didn't actually win.
You guys remember that film we watched, the other meeting we had, that movie we watched, and we actually looked up the trailer, and it was like a screen full of reefs, and we
Yep.
actually read through them, and we were like, well, they only won like 3 awards. Everything else was just nominations. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
when you look at it, like the screen is only there for like a second. So when you see it, you're like, oh, it won all these awards. But then when you actually read it, you're like, well, it only won like 2.5. The rest of them. And the thing is about festivals is like some of them you could actually nominate yourself. Like you can nominate yourself for your film for best cinematography and best story. But you can nominate, you pay the extra fee, but just because it was nominated doesn't mean it was like, official, or something, depending on the festival. If it allows it, some festivals you have to get nominated by the judges. Others you can nominate yourself, and they'll just look at it in that category and whatnot. But also, you had also mentioned using like celebrity figures as advertisements. Like if they're not really a big star, you shouldn't really put them on the forefront, like this person's name on the poster and stuff like that, which you're absolutely right, because I see a lot of people do it, especially in this area. So we have actually a lot of celebrities, well, B-list celebrities actually live here. Like the dude from Cousin Skeeter lives in like Virginia. And I just happened to be one of the sound guys for that project. And they have him in like a small scene. He's not like a big player, but like they have his face on the poster, and it's like, and I mean, he's like big, like mountainside big on the poster, and his name is on there. I'm like, he's not even, because they can only afford him for like 8 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I was like, they're using him to sell him, and there's another guy. Is it Omar Gooding?
I feel like that would be such an issue though, because if people think, oh, he's in this movie and he's in like 5 minutes, I'd be pissed. Like if it were
Exactly.
Well, that happens. That even happens with larger films where they're like, oh my God, it's gonna be, even for like, okay, I'm gonna say Batman versus Superman, because that wasn't really about the actors. That was about, oh, they're gonna battle, and then it's like very small amount.
Oh, and Wonder Woman's gonna be in it, and she was in it.
Until this little battle, like that was the whole thing, and the movie's called that because it draws you in. I mean, so you use it when you can.
They had like a Wonder Woman cameo in Batman versus Superman. They're like, we're gonna see our first look at Wonder Woman or whatever. I remember that, and she was in it for like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, like one scene, just a few minutes. I was like, that's it. That's Wonder Woman.
I mean, but that's kind of different.
But that's normal, yeah.
She's actually playing like a heavy, like she's dressed up. Her character's dressed up and jazzy up, but like they had a movie with like Chris Tucker. It was like an independent. It had Chris Tucker in it, and they put his name on there. I was, it's got Chris Tucker in it, but it was like Chris Tucker as like he was like an extra. He was in the movie, but he like had like no lines, and he wasn't like being Chris Tucker. He was just a guy, at the doctor's office, like, hey man, da-da-da-da. So I was like, what a rip-off. Like, it's Chris Tucker, and you didn't even utilize him in all his goodness. Like, that quick 30 seconds he was in the movie, like, it could have been like, hey, man, Chris, do your thing. It would have been worth it. But no, like, they didn't utilize him to that. At least with the Wonder Woman thing, it was like, she's actually Wonder Woman, even though it was like 30 seconds. But we're still getting Wonder Woman.
What about this?
If I see Chris Tucker and I don't get Chris Tucker, I'm gonna be mad. That's the thing.
Okay, what about this? Yesterday, me and Coda saw, like, I didn't know that HBO did not do a good enough job at letting me know that the Animaniacs was actually on HBO at that point. So I was like, or Hulu, I don't remember if it was HBO Max or Hulu, one of the two. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the Animaniacs reboot. I didn't see it. And it was like Steven Spielberg Presents, right? Something like that. Was it Steven Spielberg? I think it was the guy from Jurassic Park. Yeah. I was like, Steven Spielberg Presents the Animaniacs. And I was like, what? He's in this. Is he
thought he was in it?
Like,
no, he was in it. He was in the very first part for like 2 minutes. He was in the first episode, opening it up, saying we're gonna redo the Animaniacs, basically, and then he was like, "There we go," and then that's it. But they put his name on the actual title of the show.
No,
exactly.
He's in the original one. No, that's Tiny Toons. My bad. That's the wrong one. Tiny Toons.
Same thing with Tiny Toons. Same thing. It said Steven Spielberg presents Tiny Toons, and I was like, is he a producer on this? Like, why the hell are they putting his name? And he was a producer, but at the same time, it's just like Steven Spielberg presents. He's in the first episode for 2 minutes.
Man, that name, the name carries you along.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Even if he did like a second cameo.
Excuse me, but the Animaniacs can stand on their own. Thank you very much.
On that note, it doesn't even have to be a solo name. Like if you notice, like movies will do like from the same people that brought you The Conjuring, like not a single person, the people that brought you The Conjuring, and you're like, oh, I have to see it now. It must be scary. They did The Conjuring. That's another.
And it's just a production company.
They'll use other movies to advertise this one particular movie. The same people.
Oh, there was like Peter Jackson. His name was all over that Mortal Engine trailer back in the day, like that movie based on the book. And I was like, it's Peter Jackson. I was like, Peter Jackson's directing this. He was one of the executive producers. And his name was all over the trailers.
He had nothing to do with the movie. He was just sitting back the whole time. No creative, nothing. But they just put his name all over it. So it must be good. They did that with Michael Bay for a long time, thinking like, oh, for Michael Bay, executive producer Michael Bay. But I'm like, it's not his film. He's just putting money into it. Why are we?
Maybe that's why people thought that he actually had good movies that didn't have huge explosions. Because his name was on stuff that was made by you.
Yeah, but no, that's what you do when you're marketing it. It works. It might get people mad, but hey, especially for an independent film, I mean, it's just kind of something you have to do if you do have the ability to do that. If you have those things in your film, you definitely want to utilize them. Be careful about the whole like false marketing.
I'd be careful because I feel like indie projects will have more of a backlash than bigger projects will on that front when it comes to that kind of thing.
I would say actually the opposite, in my opinion.
Really?
But yeah, I would think, well, I don't know. In my opinion, I think that people are more forgiving towards independent films than they are towards big budget Hollywood movies because they know that they had the budget to do it. They just didn't.
Well, that's because there's no name attached to it. They don't really pay attention to who directed, who wrote it, so they don't really know who to blame. They're just like, oh, it's just a short, cheap film. But if it's like a big production like Die Hard, wait a minute, Bruce Willis accepted this? Like, oh my God, he's trash.
Yeah, you're right.
Like when you have names to blame, like the first thing people will be like, oh man, Bruce Willis just needs to let it go. He's old. And then they're like, oh, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. And then they find out who the director is. Oh, he's so terrible. Like it just goes down the line. When there's people's names involved, then they can be okay. But if there's no names involved, they'll be like, oh, it's just a cheap. It's kind of like my theory about the fan film franchise, like Cowboy Bebop on Netflix. If they had been like, yo,
don't talk to me about that.
And called this a fan film, people would have loved it. Like, oh, this is so good. But because it's on Netflix, people hated it.
Because they expect a certain thing. Yeah. Anime just doesn't translate well to live action.
But it had a name behind it. It had Netflix. So people like, man, Netflix is some trash. They put Cowboy Bebop to shame. But if they had put it on YouTube,
it was really bad. No,
nobody would, because I've seen a lot of fan films that get lot of praise just for being a film. It's so good for a fan film. I'm like, all right, we'll put it on Netflix and see how people react to it. See what happens.
You think Netflix would learn too that just anime does not translate well to live action, or at least not the way they're doing it. But they keep rolling them out. They just have a new one coming out too. I forgot which anime, but a lot of people are passionate about it, and it looks like trash. So they're still doing it.
Because it's making them money. It's bringing people in to subscribe to watch it because they like that
making
series.
Them rage watch,
I suppose. And they're like, oh, I have to see. I've always been reading all these, the comics or the manga or whatever, and I have to go watch it. I've heard people say I've heard people say, oh, I have to go see this And I was like,
To
that
see how
looks
bad it is.
really
Rage
bad.
button.
No, they're just like, I know it looks bad, but I have
They're
to. I'm such a
fans.
fan.
I mean,
Somebody
that's
said that about one of the new
curiosity.
Star Wars movies. They were like, I just love Star
Nope.
Wars so much.
Honey, you wanted to
No, I
watch
was
the
saying
new
like
Star Wars
somebody
show,
like they
and
were
I was
saying
like,
that they
no.
wanted to see the rise of Skywalker, and they were like, but that looks so bad.
Fool me
They
once,
said,
bro.
I
You
know,
had
but
two
I
bad
like
movies.
Star Wars, so I have to try it. And they watched it at the theater.
Rage
They're like,
button.
yeah.
I can understand. I can understand the second one in the series. You saying that. The third one, bro. I'm like, no. You just like to suffer.
You're a glutton for punishment. Man, I hate this so much.
No.
Next episode.
The
But it's
second
not
one I
even that,
can
it's just
get.
they're
You're
fans of
like,
that.
maybe they'll fix it. No.
But
the
it's
third
just they're
one, no.
fans of that series or that project so much that they want to give it the chance, even if it looks like all the odds are against them having a
See,
good time.
that has to do with personality, because I'm the kind of person that you F me over once with a bad reboot. If you do it again, I'm not even gonna look at it. I'm gonna like just because I'm pissed, I'm not even gonna give you the time of day. You might be better than the last one, but you burned me once and you are not doing it again. Like I am just gone. That is my personality. Coda wanted to check out Andor or whatever the crap, and I was like, nope. They screwed me once with the not Anakin. Gosh, I forget. I'm terrible. They screwed me once with the Obi-Wan Kenobi one. They screwed me with the Mandalorian. Nope, I'm not doing it. Nope.
Yeah. Well, either way, the reason why they keep doing it is because it's working. It's getting the people who want to see it, who are fans of that series, to go watch it. And the same thing happens when you have IPs from other things, especially if it's like different IPs, different anime projects that they're bringing live action. Oh, Death Note sucked, but maybe this other one I like is gonna be good. Maybe Cowboy Bebop.
You've had a bajillion Death
Oh,
Note
that one sucked
movies,
too.
bro. You
Hey,
have
the
enough
Full Metal
material.
Alchemist movie, maybe that one will be good. Oh,
Honey,
that one
don't talk
sucked.
about that one. That one broke
And it's just
my
because they
heart.
have different fan bases, or even if they have the same person liking all three, they'll still give each one a chance if they like those IPs enough. So
Yeah. Some
that's just
people
that's
hopeless
why those
romantic.
things are. That's why we have so many IPs coming out, and why like right now it's basically just all reboots, sequels, or prequels or whatever, because it all needs to be based on something that already has a built-in fan base, because no matter what else, most of that built-in fan base is going to go see it, even if
I
it
feel
looks
like there
trash.
is such a thing as audience fatigue, though. It comes longer for some people. It takes longer, but I do feel like it comes eventually.
Right, but that's when the industry will shift it around and remarket things and do other projects. But right now, that's what's happening because that's what is selling. That's what is safe, because they know that there's an audience for these things. So
Well, there's an audience. There's also, you're leaving out social media because there is power behind it, just like with the Sonic the Hedgehog thing, where they put some snippets out and people are like, man, that's some trash. They're like, oh no, man, we gotta fix this like right now. So there is some power behind it. It's just, but there's also a resistance, kind of like with Ghostbusters 2016, where it was like, oh, you guys are just some haters, like and just became controversial for no reason, But
to be fair, Afterlife was really good. No one expected that movie to be as good as it was. At least I did.
I did. They had all the green flags. I was like, okay, this one should be good. The red flag, you can kind of see them before they happen. Just like with Sonic the Hedgehog, like they saw it. I was like, they saw it with Sonic the Hedgehog, and before, I'll give them their props. Like they made the wise decision by actually listening to the people.
They didn't treat the fans like idiots. Yeah.
If we can band together and do the same thing with all these stupid reboots, like the Cowboy Bebop, like if we had just been like, yo, we're not seeing this no more, we're done. They
That's what I've been saying for years.
Let's just make a good movie, okay? Like the
nerds need to unite. I'm telling you, I've been saying this for years.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes, but more often than not, the built-in fan base goes and watches it because they just want to see if it was done well. even if everything is saying it wasn't done well. They still want to.
But that's because there's a resistance against it. So you have a group that's like, this looks like some trash, but then you have another group that's like, oh, you're just hating on it just to hate it. You're nostalgic and you're old, and or whatever excuse they make up to exclude whatever you're feeling that this movie is going to be bad. So there's like a small group that kind of just like, oh, we're gonna go see it. And then just like with Ghostbusters 2016, it was like you had a small group of people like, it's so good. And then the people that were new went to go see it just based off of that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That small group just made that.
I have
work.
not met one person, and I am online a lot, that actually liked that movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, apparently they exist because they don't.
And it's also about hate watching on some things.
Maybe they're closeted. Maybe they're quiet about it. Like,
how bad they made this.
Yeah,
project.
I'm just saying. Like,
so there is that too.
They're banking off the wave of the resistance, saying, "Hey, like, you're gonna go see this movie. If you don't like it, then you're sexist. You're this. You're that. You're whatever." They come up with next, to make.
Oh yeah, there is always those people that are like, "Oh, you're probably this, and so I'm just gonna watch it to spite you."
Yeah, so it kind of like it's kind of bad publicity, but there's that resistance that's there. I'm hoping that fades out at some point, that we stop doing that and just call it for what it is.
Me too.
But
it's letting studios get away with a lot of crap.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It really is. It really is. And but like I said, the power of social media can go either way. But if there was like a coalition of nerds to say, hey, we're gonna put an end to these reboots, then maybe that will fix things. But until then, like, we're just stuck with the wave of the worm on the hook, like, oh, we're gonna do another Halloween. You thought it was over?
Oh yeah.
Halloween ends, but it's not over yet.
Just when you think, okay, we're done, right? No, I'm more.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's marketable elements that they're using to draw in those audiences. So they're doing it in a different way because they have a different budget, but it's still the same basic concept of using what you have to draw an audience in, and that's what all these marketing elements are. So I understand why they do it. I don't like how they do it, and sometimes I don't like that, there's certain things, like we're saying, like they put an actor in there that I think is going to be in more of the film than they are, and then they're not, and it's like, oh man. But I see why they do it on a marketing side of things, and I would do it too if I had something like that to market in a film that I made, just because it would draw in more people to watch it. And just because that thing they came to see it for, it maybe isn't in it as much as they thought it would be, doesn't mean I was lying, first of all. And also, it doesn't mean that they are going to hate the movie. They might end up liking the movie and also be kind of upset that the actor that they came to see isn't in it as much, but they might like the movie anyway. So you sometimes just have to utilize those things because that's what's going to draw in the audience, regardless.
It tricks you, but hey, you like the movie, didn't you?
Well, yeah, and then there's so you're talking about the marketable side. So what's his name? Matt Damon's talking about why movies are different now. It's because before he pretty much said it. Before, they were banking on if the movie flops in theater on its theater run, they still had like the DVD release. But now, because you have all these streaming services, that's pretty much over with. So it's just like they can't really bank on the DVD release. They had to rely on like Netflix to like soup it up, like, oh, this is now, you know what I'm saying? You notice how they only like Netflix and HBO Max, they only advertise like certain things. Oh, this is now on HBO Max, or now on this, that, and the other.
Even good stuff they don't advertise enough or don't advertise right.
Yeah, because I guess the money isn't right. But the stuff that sucks, they'll advertise it, and it's just like, why are they advertising that? No, that movie was some trash, because they were banking on trying to make money back from the money they lost in the theater. So it's kind of like, and you'll see on the DVD, I was like, when they I keep going back to Ghostbusters 2016, but like when they had the Ghostbusters 2016
Bullying on
Blu-ray
that
come
movie.
out. It's like, it was, what did it say? It said like a 70 some whatever percent on Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
the Rotten Tomato score is just a sign that it's bad. Like it having a good, it's just like, oh, that's probably crap. Stay away from that. Like,
Yep, that's
if
how
you
you know.
advertise it, that's
When
how
they
you
have
know.
to resort to the Rotten Tomatoes review, that's how you know. But then again, it goes back to what I was saying. They probably paid like the bots to go on Rotten Tomatoes and boost that score up so they can say, oh, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And we also
Maybe.
like, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this, but like, I feel like now with all the streaming services, it's also really hard for you to gauge what is like a good movie and what's not that's available, because back then we have, oh, straight to DVD movie, it's probably mediocre, or it's probably bad. Oh, theater movie, oh, it's probably more often than not pretty good, or for a different audience. Now, or like TV movie, oh, it's probably cheesy as crap or really low budget. You had like some criteria that you kind of could have an idea of what to expect as far as quality, as far as like just the type of movie you were getting. And now I feel like with all these streaming services and stuff, it's just not as clear anymore how to differentiate between a good movie and utter garbage, or like a low budget movie, or anymore.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good for independent filmmakers because it gets more people to watch your thing.
Yeah, but it also gets a lot more stuff lost in the algorithm, lost in the social media, because a lot of stuff, like it's a huge catalog. There's no way to distinguish anything. And so a lot of things end up being lost, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's why marketing is so important for your film, because there's so much media out there that we have to reach the audience as best we can, and we have to target the right audience, which is why finding the target market, your target audience is so important. So you can market this film to them, and then using these marketable elements, finding the best parts of the film, finding the things that will make them want to come see it, and using those to draw them into using those on the right people so that they come and buy a ticket or go rent it or go watch it on the streaming service it's on, so that you can then get that audience you need to make the money back and then a profit.
I feel like we're also going to see a lot of changes in advertising as far as because social media streaming services are relatively new still. Like we forget that they're like less than 20 years old. So I feel like only now that they're losing a crap ton of money and they're looking and they're like, wow, we're losing a lot of money. Are they actually trying to get better at their marketing, get better at marketing certain projects, because their marketing sucks, and that's been an issue that's lost them a lot of money and gotten a lot of shows canceled. So I feel like there is going to be a shift in the next few years where advertising will change. I feel like that's also why a lot of streaming services are like having ad-free or cheaper ad options so that they can advertise the film beforehand. That's why a lot of, like, I know Paramount Plus does this, and other platforms do this, or they will have an ad for a show.
What? You cut off.
Movie that's on their platform before the show or movie.
You cut off, so I'm gonna mute you because you're kind of like very.
Starts sometimes, or oh, 1 second, I'm almost home. Where did I end? Hey, can you hear me?
Is it cutting out for everybody or just me?
No, I was outside. That's why. I just got in. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying that, like, I feel like there's going to be a shift in the next few years of us seeing more advertisements for their stuff before the film, after the film, during credits. It's going to change a lot. So I guess we'll see how that goes as well, as far as marketing and how much actually changes in like a larger scale, or if it just changes in the sense of it becomes more like TV.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But you know, that is more for the larger budgeted films, the larger budgeted projects, and then the platforms marketing those. Independent films, if you
No,
are
but I'm talking
lucky
about
enough to get a platform to advertise your film on their platform, then that means you have done a very good job at making a film, very good job at marketing it, and have already established a fan base for that film. And then got one of those bigger streaming services to buy it from you, and then they like it enough to advertise it to everybody on their platform, then yeah, you made a very amazing film that has beaten a lot of the odds. But for independent films,
but my
way we
point,
market things, like I was saying, like you kind of have to find the hooks and the things that are the best in your film, because it being honest, like they're not going to be as good in most aspects as the larger budgeted films, because they just don't have the budget to meet those things. What can be good is the script. The acting can actually be very well done if done right. The way it looks, the way it edits together, the story overall, those all could be very good, but the quality of it, looks, the smoothness of like camera movements and stuff, those are going to be harder to match the big budget films, because they had all this equipment, they had all this stuff to make top tier special effects, top tier visual effects, top tier movements, pay the best cinematographer out there to do it, who's been doing it for 40 years. So, those things are harder to get done well in a independent film as the big budget films. But if you do have those elements, if you did do well with those things, then that's why you use them as your marketing elements. That's why you
my
use
point my point with
because
that is just that independent films, I wonder if they're going to be, because you know how similar films are advertised to you. Like if you're watching a cartoon, you get ads for another cartoon or another kid's show or whatever. I wonder if you're watching an independent film on a streaming platform and you manage to get it on an independent on a streaming platform, if you will get ads for other independent films. That was my main question, basically. Like I wonder.
I guess that would be like one of the better independent films on their platform. And the fact that you got on the platform at all would already mean that you were doing very well, because they're most likely not just going to pick it up if nobody's watching it, unless they just see it and really love the movie and think it's going to do well if they can market it right, But
unless you're on like Tubi or that other one that I forgot the name of. Because I remember when we were watching our independent films through there, they just kept showing us ads for bigger streaming services and bigger shows on those streaming services. So I wonder if, let's say you got your film on Tubi, if they would advertise other independent films to watch on Tubi, because I feel like that would be a much better marketing
and the
strategy.
reason why they don't is because they are a free service. So marketing their own stuff doesn't do anything for them. And that's why you see the bigger streaming services or whoever owns them, one of those bigger companies probably owns that streaming service that does free content. I think it's Paramount that owns Tubi, maybe, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, because they had a bajillion Paramount.
But even if not, they have some kind of deal or some kind of whatever that they're going to market on their platform for this amount of money or something. They made some kind of deal with them. And so a free streaming service, an ad-based streaming service, if you get on those, you have to still basically do your own marketing, because you get paid. You usually with those, you get paid based on how many people are watching it, more than like a flat-based fee like you do with a subscription streaming service model like Netflix or HBO Max. The reason why those can market their own stuff is because they want to keep people on the platform. They want to keep them subscribed. So like, oh, you like this? You'll also like this other show we have, because shows take a while to watch. So let's really advertise our shows to these people that are similar to the one they're watching now, so that they stay on the platform, pay for another month or two as they watch through the next show. And that's why they can market their own products, and why you don't really see it with the free ones, because the free ones need to get paid advertisements to make money. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to have a platform.
It just sucks, because it would be really cool if we could get more independent films, because one of the plus sides of streaming services is, oh, more independent films will be out there, right? They'll buy more independent films. So if we could also have advertisements for those films on those streaming services, that would be really ideal for more people to find more independent films, like targeted ads. Oh, you're watching an independent film, here's another one. But like you said, for that to happen, you would have to get on a paid streaming service.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen that's similar to that is Others Like This, or things other people like that when they watch this same thing. You know, they do that, but they don't really advertise it in the same way. Like a video ad or a trailer ad or whatever. They just kind of show, hey, you like this? Are you watching this? There's other things that are like it on our platform. Here they are. So
and that's still better than nothing.
Yeah. All right, moving on from marketing elements, we're going to be talking about multiple target audiences. This stuff comes from maddoxdesign.com. It's letter D in the syllabus. So sometimes you might find that you actually have multiple target audiences for a film. You know, usually you want to try to narrow it down to one, but sometimes you might find that you have more than one. Your film applies to multiple target markets, target audiences. This is especially true when you have a film that sort of blends two genres together, or is mostly one genre, but has many elements of another genre within it. So in those instances, it's important to clarify who each target audience is. I was talking about that film that, you know, we said action film that has a lot of dramatic elements in it. Well, maybe it's like 60% action film, 40% drama. And if you've blended it well, if you've actually made a good film out of that, and it doesn't have a tonal clash, then you can utilize both aspects of that to target two different audiences. You have two target audiences. You have one that likes drama films, you have one that likes action films, and you'll have some overlap there where they like both.
Like if you have a film with different that could resonate with different age groups as well. Like if you have one that could resonate with Gen Z, but also with millennials, like with the Netflix movie, the Do Revenge one, it had very Gen Z humor, but it had a lot of millennial references to like 90s films and early 2000s films and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and like there could be a
80s.
story about a teenage girl going through adolescence and her mother, or single mother maybe. And now you apply to two different age groups, two different audiences, the teenagers and the mothers, hopefully. You know, if you've done well, you've illustrated them both, or you've portrayed them both accurately or relatably. And so now you can target single moms, and you can also target teenage girls.
Even married moms, but that are, you know, younger married moms that had like teenage years, or that remember their teenage years, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you'll still have your main target audience, and then you'll find that you might have multiple other ones as well. So again, typically you want to find your target audience, your core audience. You want to try to narrow it down to one. But in these other instances, sometimes you'll find that you have two different segmented groups. So we took this picture right here. You see that there's all these pink people, there's the black people, and then these blue people. And we'll say the blue people like sci-fi movies, the pink people like fantasy movies, and the black people like fantasy, sci-fi, family movies. And now we'll say that we have something like Star Wars but it's family based. It's kind of fantastical. It's kind of a fantasy, and it's sci-fi. So now we can segment all three of these groups into different target audiences. And of course, there's going to be a lot of overlap here. There's going to be in the middle, you're going to find that there's people who like all three of these, but there's going to also be these segmented groups that we want to target individually when we're advertising or marketing to them, so that we can draw in each group. We can draw in the people who like family, because now you got that brother, sister, dad, you know, if it's more family based. And then you have like the fantasy, the force, and you have the sci-fi, the starship, space, blah, blah, blah. So
I feel like another example would be like sci-fi and action. Not every sci-fi film necessarily is an action film, and not every action film necessarily is a sci-fi film, but
well, that's
you
absolutely true with the action.
no,
Action films
you know,
are hardly always going to be sci-fi. Keep
no,
going.
but
I
I'm
was just
saying,
commenting.
you know what I mean? Like, I mean that, like, not every sci-fi film is like super action packed, and not every action film is a sci-fi film. So if you can blend those two, there might be some overlap. But there's also people that just like action. It's like, oh, this is a sci-fi, but it's also very action packed. I like action. I'll give it a try. I might not be like the hugest sci-fi fan, but it seems pretty fun and action packed. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
That's how I got
So-
into sci-fi. I never really liked like all aspects of it, but then, you know, the more interesting and action-packed it became, the more I was like, okay, I'll give it a try.
So in those instances, it's important to clarify who each target audience is. Just like when finding a singular target audience, you want to narrow it down to the core audience or the perfect fan. You want to still narrow it down to who is the best viewer, who is the ideal viewer that would, I believe, would absolutely come see this film without a doubt. That's your core audience. That's your perfect audience member, because they're the ones who are without a doubt going to see it. And then you start branching out a little bit. But if you have multiple target audiences, you want to find the perfect fan or that core audience for both. You want to find the core audience for this target audience, and then you want to find the core audience in this separate target audience. You know, which perfect fan is over here and over there. You know, this person, they like the exact film I'm making, and this person likes the exact film I'm making, but the other aspects that are in it. And so both of these are going to be my best choice fans, and the rest of this group might be fans of it as well, because they like different aspects, but they're not the exact same as this person that I really believe is going to like it, because the main character is the same age, gender, race. They like the same ideas, the things, they go to the same places, whatever. Somebody who lives in that same location that the main character's from and is basically the character themselves, they might have the best experience with this film, but that doesn't mean that they're the only ones who are going to like it, because there's commonalities in their group that like it as well. And so then you can find out who you are trying to market to the most within each of these target audiences, and then start branching out a little bit in each, like you would if you were just looking for one target audience or singular audience. Because if you have multiple target audiences, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to do it twice or more times if you find you have more than two target audiences, which that should be pretty rare. You shouldn't really find a huge crap ton of audiences.
So here's my question, right? Would you do a 60-40 split, 50-50, 80-20?
Depends. Is your film 50-50? Is it 60-20? I mean, 60-40, is it 80-20? You know, what aspect are you taking to target these audiences with, and how much of that for that target audience is in your film? If we said fantasy, if we said a family movie that's also a fantasy, all right, the fantasy people, how much of your movie is fantasy? You know, is it high fantasy? Is it just kind of has some fantasy elements? And then how much of your film is family based and like a very either inspirational or dramatic or warm, friendly, fuzzy family moment type film, and how much of that is in each? because that's how much you might market to each, or how much you might spread your marketing out and say, okay, well, it's mainly fantasy, but there are elements of family fighting and then making up and whatever. So people who like family films, they're only going to like it so much, because the main part of it is fantasy, or it could be the other way around. And that's how you would that's how you should split your marketing up if you find you have multiple target audiences. You still narrow it down each time just to a different target audience as best you can. You still want to narrow it down very far so you can find, again, your best perfect fan in each segmented group that you've created. I have a note in here that says, let's say somehow your film's target audiences are more Hispanic teenagers living in Southern United States. And then you also have middle-aged Asian female mothers living in Northern United States. You wouldn't blanketly state that your target audiences are Asian and Hispanic male and female teenagers to middle-aged adults living in the US. You would still narrow down both target audiences separately to arrive at a much more specific target audience, where you might arrive at that Hispanic teenagers living in Southern US and middle-aged Asian female mothers living in Northern US. We've still narrowed it down. They're just two separate target audiences. So now we have multiple target audiences, but they're both narrowed down. However we narrowed it down that way, that's just an example, obviously, but there should be some reason why you've narrowed it down to those specific groups of people. Because when you have multiple target audiences, you also want to see if there are any commonalities in them for the film and what might interest them. Earlier, like our action movie with a lot of drama, the action might work better to attract the male teenagers, while the drama might work better to attract the middle-aged moms. However, the underlying theme and message of the film might attract both. They might like the underlying message, whatever it may be. It might apply to both of them. So then in the marketing, when you're marketing to both, you can utilize that message across the board, but then specifically use the action parts to market to the teenagers, the male teenagers, while using the drama parts to market to those middle-aged moms. Or you could use certain actors, certain scenes, stuff like that might attract both audiences. There might be things within the film that attract both, that they're both interested in. You want to find any commonalities between your multiple target audiences so you can utilize those commonalities to market to both at once with the same marketing campaign, as well as marketing separately to each with the separate marketing campaigns that's aimed individually.
That was the note that I was going to make, is you don't necessarily have to make just two completely different campaigns for those two audiences. For example, like in a trailer, you can show multiple aspects of your film. You can show that it's comedic and action-packed. You can show that it's family-oriented, but also fantasy. Like, you can still show those different aspects of your story in one trailer. So don't think that you can only do that if you advertise like completely different avenues or completely different trailers.
Yeah, but you might find that you'll have a better, you might find that you if you have the resources and the time, you might choose to create two different trailers that have some of the same elements that both will like, both groups, as well as singularly targeting the things that that one target audience will like. Or, like Priscilla said, you can find those elements and say, okay, I know people will like the drama parts. I know these people will like the action parts. And I know both of them will like the message or the theme. So I'm going to make sure in the trailer that I show the action parts, that I show the drama parts, and that I show what the theme is. That way, both audiences are satisfied with this trailer. So when I market it to people, I can market it to both of my target audiences. Because having multiple target audiences just means that you want to target the right ones in the right way. You're still going to need, you're still going to have to target them. You're just going to have to make sure that you target each in the right way. If you found that while some of your teenage target audience users use Facebook, but the larger majority of Facebook users goes to your middle-aged mother target audience, then you probably want to focus your marketing on Facebook to your middle-aged mother audience. Because even if you have some, obviously there's going to be some of the male teenagers on Facebook. If the majority of Facebook users are going to be in the other target audience, which would, in this case, this example would be the middle-aged mothers, then you want to use Facebook to target them because the majority of that audience will be on that platform. Also, just like how the film is mostly one genre over the other, the film will cater to one target audience over another. So like Priscilla was saying, how do you, what ratio do you do? And that's going to be based on, is this film more action or is it more drama? And then you're going to make a primary audience and a secondary audience based on that. So even if you have two target audiences, you still need to decide who the primary one is. It's very unlikely that you're going to have a 50-50 split between all the interests and the perfect audience members, and it's going to be 50-50 down the line. It's most likely going to be at least 60-40, if not more. And so you want to figure out who am I primarily going to utilize my funding and my marketing on, and then who am I secondarily going to be focusing on. Even when you have a single target audience, it's the same thing. You have less of a, you know who the secondary audience is a little bit less because you don't have as many elements that will draw them in. When you have multiple target audiences, that means you have aspects in your film that are going to draw two separate audiences in. When you have a single target audience and you're going to also target the secondary people, that just means that, you're going to target to the people who like fantasy, and then you're going to target to your friends and family who might come see it just because they like you or whatever. And so that's a little bit less of a reason for those people to come see it, rather than having a film that actually will attract both separate target audiences. But you always want to figure out which one, if you have multiple target audiences, you always want to figure out which audience is the primary one and spend more time and resources marketing to them over the other. Of course, you don't disregard the other entirely if you find you have multiple target audiences, but you only have a limited time and a limited budget. So utilize it the best by dedicating more to the primary audience that you think is going to like the film the most. Finding one target audience is already hard enough, and then finding multiple makes it more expensive and takes more time and work because you have to do more research into where do these people hang out, what do they like, what would they want to see in marketing, what kind of marketing do they like best. And then you have to make those marketing elements. Some might like to just look at key art and buy the film and go see it. Others might want to see a trailer and read a thing and see a review before making that decision. So you have to figure those things out twice now instead of just once when you find a singular target audience. However, if you find that you have multiple target audiences, it is worth it if those multiple target audiences exist and you market to both individually and combined in the right ways, because then you're going to have more people come and see it. But just know that multiple target audiences is going to make it more expensive. It's going to be a lot more work, but it'll be worth it in the end. But that's why you don't want to necessarily just think that you have multiple target audiences if really you don't. The majority of your film is about a main character I'm going to go back to that teenage girl and the single mother film. If we're seeing the whole film's point of view from the teenage girl, then you don't really have a target audience of a single mother demographic. You have more of a target audience of the teenage girls or the moms who are recently became adults who, would remember being teenager girls, like Still was saying. Whereas if you have both of those people being the main characters, now you might have two separate target audiences, because if half the time is spent with the mother from her point of view and half the time is spent with the daughter from her point of view, now we might be able to actually make it relatable to both of those target audiences.
I would also note that that is a very important distinction, because most movies aren't just one thing, aren't just going to appeal to one demographic or one genre completely or one perspective. So it is very important for you to tell the distinction of, is this just a broader movie, or does this just have like multiple themes or, multiple points of view? Or is this truly a movie that are for two very different audiences that can come together in one thing? Because sometimes, yeah, it's different ages, but it's the same marketing, it's the same appeal, it's the same thing that'll draw them in. And sometimes you need to adapt your marketing to those demographics. So knowing the difference between the two, I feel like is very important, because that way you don't end up wasting money thinking you have to advertise for these two completely separate groups, when the advertisement you have could very well work for both of them, because it's a thing they have in common. It's something that both can connect to, not necessarily just, two distinctive voices, but one voice that multiple people can connect to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say is just because you have multiple things in the film doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be should be targeted to multiple separate target audiences. It just means that you have, like Priscilla said, a broader film that has more aspects to it. So you really, it's a little bit harder to make that distinction, but you really need to look at it and see, like, how much of my film is dedicated to this thing that this target audience will like, and how much of my film is dedicated to this thing that this other target audience will like. Not just, oh, my film is this, but it has aspects of this other thing that this other target audience likes. Then you don't want to separate it into two separate target audiences, because just because it has some elements in it that other target audience will like doesn't mean that you want to target them specifically and separately when you are doing your marketing. Because like I said, it's going to be double the time, double the cost to get everything, to be able to market to these people and then these people. And then of course, if you have three or more, then, oh my God, it just keeps increasing your budget, increasing your time that you're spending marketing. Because now you have to market to them, and then to them, and then to them. And then whatever overlap there is, you can market to all of them at once, but you still have to separate them into separate groups when you're marketing specifically to that target audience.
I feel like without trying, I did somewhat of a good analogy that I don't remember exactly the term, but yeah, like there are stories that resonate to multiple types of people, and it's different than having one story that has multiple aspects that resonate to different people, like
yeah.
If it's a story that's broader and can speak to multiple people at the same time, like that aspect, that's different than, oh, this story has multiple perspectives and multiple parts that appeal to different people.
Yeah.
It is hard, but that's where the analysis of the story comes in. That's where, research comes in, and actually analyzing the story you have and seeing what it is,
Yeah, and also, like, just know that the majority of your films are probably going to have a single target audience. Most films do not have multiple target audiences. They might have a primary audience and a secondary audience in the way that, whoa, well, there is a mother in this film, so these teenage girls are going to love it. And then our secondary market's going to be the mothers that, remember being teenagers. And our tertiary market's going to be the mother figure, because there is a mother in here. She's just in it for 5 minutes. And then, like I said, if the whole movie is spent with those two people, they're the main characters, both points of view are shown and both are relatable in different ways. That's when you might actually be like, oh, we need to actually target this separate demographic and then this separate demographic separately, so we can show them both. And obviously, if it's a mother-daughter film and they're both in it, then you can probably put both of them in your trailer and kind of market to both at once anyway. So there's also that. And so, yeah, like I said, it's going to be difficult to tell, but if you really feel like you have separate target audiences, multiple target audiences, then you want to find the commonalities between both groups, or all three groups, or however many groups there are, and then make a lot of marketing material out of those things, and then find out what is the separate things. Where do they hang out? Where do these people hang out? And what time of day are they on? What time of day are they on? And figure out all those different things. And what aspects of the film will these people like more? What aspects of the film will these people like more? And then market to them separately.
And it's better to find commonality, like you said, because it's cheaper and it's more focused, as opposed to trying to advertise to multiple different directions, different people, different, it's a lot. So if you can focus in on those, okay, this is what connects all of these groups, this aspect of our film, and that's what we're going to advertise, that will be better in the long run for you to reach more people and for you to save money on your budget as far as advertising.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything else to add to multiple target audiences for film?
You can't please everyone. That's what I have to say.
Yes.
I see people trying to, well, I want to involve all this stuff, this, that, and the other. It's just like, you're going to offend somebody. You're going to make somebody mad at some point. I know Family Guy, I mean, we know the history behind it, but they got a lot of flack for, especially now. Like now I saw a post from a guy.
What show isn't getting flack now is a better question at this point.
I feel like we're going backwards in history, because I remember growing up, and I'm not that old. I mean, I'm older, but I'm not that old. But I remember when like shows like even The Simpsons. The Simpsons was considered an edgy show, because coming from the 60s, the 70s, where television was considered like quote unquote innocent, where like there were things that just
have you seen episodes of Tom and Jerry? That thing is violent as hell.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. It's crazy, but because it's a cartoon, it's not it's just innocent and stuff like that, and but now we look at it now and we're like, yo, these animators were like
perverts.
But shows like The Simpsons and I used to love Married with Children, which was weird because like I was a kid watching that show. But that show got a lot of flack, and it was because it was so edgy and there were just things that weren't considered appropriate. That's why they showed it late night. But things that were,
sex jokes and stuff. It wasn't even that edgy, but yeah.
MTV was considered like, oh man, the raunchy network or whatever. But now, and then now fast forward to now where it's like, those shows open all these doors and they broke all these ceilings, these glass ceilings. They broke everything, just breaking all the rules and stuff. And people loved it. Oh man, we love it. And it's, we need sex cells and all this stuff. And now here we are in 2022 complaining about it. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff
I remember. Oh, sorry, go ahead, finish. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, like the stuff that led to where we are now today. And now like this new, well, I don't even know who to blame, but it's like now we're like looking at it and being like, oh, well, you can't do that. Like Family Guy. I saw a guy complaining about an episode of Family Guy because he said it was like a racist thing, even though we've all come to terms that Family Guy gets on every race, every culture, everything, like, you know, so it kind of puts themselves in it. It's not justifying it, but it's just like, oh, you know, we know what Family Guy is about, but this guy, it's like he's been living
Kind
in
of like how South Park makes a bunch of Jewish jokes, but one of the writers is Jewish, so it's.
but you know,
Yeah.
he woke up like, man, this is racist. And I was like, yo, that episode aired like almost 20 years ago. Like, where have you been at? Now all of a sudden we're going, oh man.
Simpsons, they
And
spare no
Family Guy
one.
too. Family
They
Guy
spare
and
no
South
one.
Park are two
Yeah.
things that I'm like, really, that's the thing you're going to say is wrong. The thing that's been edgy since forever, that's been like,
Yeah.
dude, come on, don't watch it then. Like, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into with that one. It's
He's
ridiculous.
trying to boycott Family Guy. I'm like, yo, you're late. Like, where were you? Like, you know, late to the party. Like, that episode aired 20 years ago, and now here you are, like, oh, it's racist and all that
Oh,
stuff.
is it the one about the race? Because I showed Coda, that clip showed up on my Instagram the other day. It's like, how is this allowed to be on TV?
Yeah,
And,
like it was the one
it's
where,
that one.
it was the one where Peter discovers he's black, and like
Oh,
I was like,
that one.
it was like, oh my gosh, this is so racist. I was like, yo, that episode was like 20 years old. I was like, no, like you're just
Dude,
now
that's
coming to the
nothing.
realization.
Did you see the video of them running? Like, there was one where it was like a race, and it was like, okay, white people go, and the white people went first, and then they're like, the rest of you go, and they're like three black guys, and they ran like way faster than them, and they're like, phew, I thought they were coming at us, and I was like, oh my, and that was the joke. Like, they thought they were profiling them or whatever, they were in a race.
Yeah, I see.
But then
I was
again,
like,
you know,
and people were like, how is this allowed to be on TV?
yeah,
They
like,
need to lighten up.
yeah, I feel like we're
Right.
going backwards. I
We're
was like,
going.
yo, like,
We are.
You
Like,
know
I
what's funny too? It's the younger generation calling the old one out, as
Dang.
opposed to back then when it was like, in my day, there wasn't this depravity and all that. Like, it was the older people calling out the youngins for being all depraved and stuff. And now it's the young people telling everyone else, like, you're wrong and racist and this and that and istophobe and whatever. And I'm like, what has happened?
I don't know which direction we're going in.
And I'm Gen Z, so I can say it.
And you know, I got nothing against the gay people, but they're making a movie, the gay movie or something with the name in it. And I just, you know, it's like, if you want to make a movie with all gay characters, fine. But
Are you talking about Bros?
No, it's a movie. It's I literally think it's called the queer movie or something like that, the gay movie or something. But it's specifically targeted for gay people, for two gay men. It's about two gay men, and the whole movie's about, you know, them being gay. You know, which is cool.
Wasn't that Bros? Because
Name it Brokeback Mountain too.
I mean,
no, it's all about advertising, though. Here's the thing: like, someone made because we're talking about advertising. It's a very good argument, because there was they were talking about how Bros, this movie about two gay dudes being gay, and like one was super masculine and the other one was not as much or whatever. And there was like one funny joke in the trailer that I thought. The rest are just like, yeah, straight people are stupid and lame and whatever. But there was this controversy where the writer, the creator, and he was like the writer, the director, and I think he acted in it as well. And he was like, everyone who's not a sexist bigot, go see Bros or whatever. And they were talking about how the movie flopped, and they were blaming straight people for it. But someone made a very good argument talking about Brokeback Mountain was like a huge movie back in the day when it came out. I think it was like 2015, 2016, something like that. And it made a crap ton of money. There were multiple movies about LGBTQIA+ characters that made a bunch of money. And it all comes down to advertising. At the end of the day, how you choose to advertise that film. If you do it in an abrasive way or in a very like exclusionary way, to where this is only for gay people or this is only for this kind of people, and if you don't support it, you're this. that is bad marketing, because you want a lot of people to watch your film, and you're just pushing people away with that. So that's another thing you have to think about.
It goes into the same thing about, the female superhero movies with like Captain Marvel and stuff like that, which is like, if you want more representation, which is understandable, I don't understand how singling out the issue makes it better. You know what I'm saying?
Make a good film and show how good it is.
Well, yeah, like, don't advertise it as the gay movie, just advertise it as a movie. So when I go to see it, I was like, oh, well, they're gay. Well, then if I decide, oh, well, they're gay characters, I walk out. Okay, now you have an argument about me being this fucking, this bigot. But like, if you're advertising it as something, oh, the gay movie, well, then I'm looking at it as, well, then this isn't for me, because it's strict, clearly it's for them. You know what I mean?
I think that's lazy.
I was a teenager
it's
when
really lazy.
I think that's
when
like what we were saying with Black Panther, how the person was like,
yeah.
oh no white people go see it, let us watch it. But you want everybody to see it so you can support that movie. You don't want just Black people to see it, because not every Black person is interested in seeing it, because not every Black person is the same. So
I remember
they're not all going to care about that movie. And so you want everybody who cares about it to go see it, so that it gets the biggest box office success, so that more films like it can be made. But if you're marketing it, if they were to do that, not the person that commented on it, but if the movie itself were to say something like that, oh, no white people come see it, this is Black only, then a lot of white people would be like, okay, I don't know, I guess the movie doesn't even want me to come see it, because they're marketing it to only Black people. So I don't know if I should go see it or not. And they would probably sit it out. And then they would also, and then what they would do, because of recently how they do things, like Priscilla saying with the bros thing.
Yeah, that's
if white people didn't go see it, then they would end up calling them racist because they didn't go watch it. Even though if they were the ones to market it that way, that would be on them. Now, of course, Black Panther didn't market it that way because they're not stupid, because they know that they want as many people to come see it as they can. They don't want to market it to only men. They don't want to market it to only Black people. They don't want to market it to only women. They want to market it to everybody, because they want everybody to come see it.
Even if your movie isn't for that specific audience, you should not specifically say this movie isn't for you, because you never know who's going to like the movie. You really don't know. People might like not be in that wheelhouse at all, but still enjoy it. I remember when Love, Simon came out, I was in high school, and it was advertised as a high school film. And yeah, the character just happened to be gay, but it was advertised mostly as a high school film. I went to see it in theaters because I wanted to support it. And I had read, I think it was like Simon and the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which was the book that it was based on. I had read the book in high school and I wanted to support the film. And so I was like, hey, this is a high school film. Yes, it was very heavily gay because the main character was gay and he was chatting with someone else and all this stuff. But there was also some very relatable stuff in it, and I enjoyed it. I went to theaters and I liked it, and I'm glad I did, because even though I wasn't gay, I still liked the film. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that the advertisement wasn't like, oh, just for gay people or just showing gay jokes and just like bros. When I watched the trailer, I was like, there's one funny joke in there. The rest are all either gay jokes or talking crap about straight people. So I'm like, even me as someone who is a little more open, like as far as like sexuality, is still kind of like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's for me then.
Because
I wouldn't get it.
For the kind of like guilt trip people that aren't gay to, like, oh, you should feel bad. That's kind of what it's going against. Like, you have movies with gay characters in them, like The Wire had what's his name, one of the leads was a gay character, but nobody really cared. Nobody, that didn't. It was still one of the greatest shows ever. You know what I mean? But then you have
realistic. You look at it,
another gay movie sequel, and it's like, how am I supposed to take that seriously? Because they're not even trying to make a good film. They're just exploiting their sexuality
and tell a good story without having, oh, the character's gay, therefore you have to see it, you have to be interested in it. No, like I watched the like a Latino, like I remember they made a Latino version of the Father's Bride or something like that. That old movie with that guy from The Cheaper by the Dozen back in the day. And I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, it's a remake. It had it had a couple Latino jokes, and I was like, Coda would not get this. This is hilarious, and I love this. But it's also it was good, and it just happened to have a Latino cast. And yes, there were a few Latino jokes, but my sister-in-law went to see it with a few of her friends, and she really liked it. And she wasn't Latino, but she still liked it. And there were jokes that passed through her head or she didn't get, but that was okay. She still enjoyed it. So I feel like if we market the film as the story is king, and that's what it is in writing, that's what it is in development, the story is king, right? So don't focus so much on, oh, we have this many POC characters, or this is not for this demographic. Focus on your story when you're advertising. And you will be surprised. There might be people you never thought were interested in it, but because you did a good job at selling your story, did a good job at advertising it, you got those people interested.
Yeah, I think the problem comes in when we're talking about marketable elements. Those are marketable elements, saying, oh, it's an all Black cast, it's an all Latino cast, it's an all whatever, it's all female led, it's female directed. Those can draw in some people to help support those kinds of films, because people do want to support things that have minority groups or female led.
But it doesn't have to be your whole thing.
But the problem comes in when they take that one marketable element that shouldn't be as big of a draw, should just be used to help draw in, and market it as the main thing. Then it becomes a problem, because then you're not even marketing this, like you said, the story as much. The trailer, it's just showing a bunch of women being, making jokes about men or whatever. So now men aren't going to be as interested in it, even if in the film itself it has a lot more to it. It's a lot more in depth. If they're just focusing on that one aspect, then it can become a problem, because then men might be like, oh, this movie's not for me, it's for women only. Oh, Bridesmaids isn't for me, because maybe they only focused on these women aspects, but because they instead focused on the comedy aspect, a lot more men were more comfortable and easier. They got interested in it because they didn't just focus on, oh, this is for women.
Bridesmaids is a great example. I know a bunch of straight friends that like Bridesmaids.
Or White Chicks.
White Chicks is for everybody. It's amazing.
Right, but it's all about the marketing, because if they marketed it in a certain way, you could totally think that that's just like Mean Girls or whatever. You could think it's a different kind of movie than it is. If all you said was, oh, there's a female director, there's female-led cast, obviously not in White Chicks, but you know what I mean? If they had a movie and it just has female-led, it's female.
Have that as part of your marketing, but never the only thing or the main thing that draws you in, because that is a very weak argument. I am a woman. I am a person of color, even if it is mixed and light or whatever. I am Latina and I am disabled. I have all of those boxes checked right there. I check all those boxes. But like, if I am watching a film, I don't want, or if I'm advertised a film, I don't want, you should see this film because it's about someone who's disabled and you're disabled. So therefore you must watch it. Well, what's it about? It doesn't matter. You're a person of color, therefore you should want to watch this film. Hey, this film is out and it's got people of color in it. And I'm like, cool, but what's it about? Why do you need to know? It's a Latin film. If I hear
the religious films will do the same thing. So like the religious films will do the same thing. Like, I'm a Christian, and then Christian movies come out and they look like crap. I don't want to go see it. And they're like, oh, you're not going to support it because no, because it doesn't look like a good movie. Like,
so many people
that's
say
the same
that
thing.
like, oh, you're a Christian, shouldn't you want to watch these movies? I'm like, no, they're not good. Like, some I watch that are good. I'm not going to watch every single Christian movie, support every single Christian movie just because it's a Christian movie.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the gay community. Like, I have gay friends that are like, they don't want to see bros because they're like that. That's not how all gay people are. We don't want to be represented like that. You know what I mean? Like even
Yeah.
gay people. No, or like the show that's on now, Chucky or Child's Play, that's on now, the show or the series with the
There's
two
a
main.
show?
Yeah, it's a series on USA, and it's
Oh,
like
wow.
the two main characters are teenage gay kids, and I'm like, all right, cool, just as long as the killing is where it's supposed to be at. Like,
Yeah. You make a Chucky show and the main draw is, oh, there's gay people in it. Are they dying a bloody death? Like, why should I care that they're in a Chucky show?
that's all I care about. Like, if they're advertising the Child's Play, franchise, and you want to make the main characters gay, all right, so be it. But just as long as you're doing it in the fashion that I need it to be, killing those people in the fashion that I need them to die in, we're good. You know what I mean? Like if they're
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think
It needs to represent the film. It needs to be more about the story and the concept than about that one specific aspect that's within it.
But you
I
can
think
still
you're not
advertise
helping
that, still
people.
draw.
You're not helping people when you're like putting it out there. It's like you have to let your imagination, like instead of like saying, oh, it's gay people, whatever. But it has to be more like how Priscilla was saying, the story. See, that's what I don't get about these movies, like particularly, oh, this is for gay people.
Also,
Usually it's a story.
yeah. And also, the
I think
characters
it's the
need to be
bottom
characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Not just,
character,
oh,
not
I am
stereotypes.
gay man. Like,
I have a
what
lot of
else
gay
are
friends
you?
that
What do you
actually
like? What are you
watched
into?
Bros.
What do you not like? What are you afraid
Right.
of? Oh, they don't
I
show
have
any
gay
of
friends that
that.
actually watch Bros, and they were like, this is just one huge stereotype. Like,
Yeah.
it's annoying. And yes, there are gay people like that, obviously. Like, that was an argument I had, a discussion I had, not argument, with one of my friends, was when I was talking about Latino representation. And I was like, well, now it's getting a lot better, but it was annoying for a while because every Latino was like this. And it was like, well, don't those people exist? Shouldn't they be represented? And I was like, yes, but we should also show people that that's not all we are. And it is annoying that every time I want to watch something that has Latino characters or Latino representation, it's this one specific type of representation. It's this one specific type of story. I saw a video essay of someone who was gay talking about how they are tired of the same story being, I'm gay, I'm in the closet, I'm scared of coming out. We've been there, done that. Can we tell other gay stories, please? Gay characters have other personalities than being gay, like, or other things happen in their lives than just like fear of coming out. Yes, that's the truth for a lot of people, and it's really hard and scary, but it's not all they are, and it's not the only hardships they deal with in life and the only stories that we're allowed to tell about them. And that's something that we need to focus on. And I feel like we've gotten to a point where people were so desperate for representation that we advertised the crap out of that when we had it because we had so little of it. But now, like I was talking to Coda the other day, it is frustrating to me as a woman, as a POC, as whatever the box is, to see that it's becoming a stereotype in the sense of, oh, a woman wrote it, therefore it must be crap because all their advertising is that a woman wrote it. Oh, there's people of color in this, all their advertising is how there's people of color in this, so it must be crap. We're starting to get to that stereotype where these people that have finally been given voices, that are finally like, okay, we're gonna hear you out. We're putting just one narrative, just one message. We're pushing out, we're letting people with crap experience, but just because they check a box, be able to tell these stories, and they're not doing it right. And then we end up advertising this whole genre, this whole experience to people the wrong way. And then in the future, that's going to be taken away or that's going to be shut down because, oh, this experiment that we advertised, it didn't work out the way we thought. People actually became abrasive to this, or people didn't like it after a while. So it was a phase. We went through it. We're not going to do the whole representation thing anymore. Now we're going to go back to basics because we tried it. It was popular for a while. People got fatigued. So now we're going back to normal. That is my fear. And that is kind of where I'm afraid we're heading. So it's kind of concerning.
Either way, the The main
But it was
story of
about
all this, to
advertising.
relate
It
it
was
back to
about-
our meeting,
Yeah.
is that that is a marketable element. Any of those things can be used in the marketing, and they can definitely draw in an audience, but they shouldn't be the main and definitely not the only thing that's marketed, because story, what is it about? Who are these people besides, what gender they are, or what or sexual orientation they have. There should still be characters, so show the character as well as then using that marketable element of it does have LGBTQ characters, or it does have an LGBTQ director, or woman director, black cast, Asian cast, whatever it is. You can use that as a marketable element, because that will draw in some support and will draw in some audiences for it. But again, that shouldn't be the main thing, and that shouldn't be the only thing, because that is starting to turn away people from movies that market it those ways, because it's like Priscilla was just saying, it's starting to get mixed with, they don't really have a story to show, so all they're showing is that a woman directed it, because they're not showing what the movie's about. Their main thing in the trailer is just that a woman directed it. So they didn't even show what the movie's about.
It doesn't show a lot of faith in your film either, if that's all you're advertising, to be honest.
Right, because you should, hopefully you have a good film, hopefully you had a good script and you made a good film out of that script, and you have something like we were talking about earlier that you can draw from, that you can utilize in your marketing besides those things. But they can also, like I said, if you have those things, you could definitely use them in the marketing. Just don't make it the main or the only thing. All right, moving on from that, we're talking about Unreal Engine 5 filmmaking. And this I only have like a little bit to talk about. Basically, in addition to what we talked about like a week ago, I think it was, where we were talking about virtual production. So virtual production uses the Unreal Engine, or at least right now. There could be more later on, but as of right now, it's using the Unreal Engine to make the backgrounds and stuff, so that you're using these virtual 3D backgrounds in place of green screen. However, there's also people have also started to use Unreal Engine to start creating short films, basically CGI animations, that they are using this engine to create films and create short films and fan films and whatever else. And it looks really good because of the assets that this gaming engine has and what it keeps coming out with. So just like how Unreal Engine has been used for virtual productions because it looks so good and those 3D background elements, it can also be used to make 3D animation cinematics or films or short films. So stuff like this, it looks really good. You can do mess with the camera. It's basically like you're creating a video game cinematic. If you guys have ever seen any of those, if you ever play video games, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you'll have these little video cinematics that play in between the gameplay or before the gameplay or after it at the end, and they'll look like an animated film. People can start using these now to, and you're basically using the same thing as you would if you were making a video game, but you're just using it to make the film only. Things like mega scans that are either pre-made. So if you get Unreal Engine, it has a list of these pre-made, what are called mega scans, which are just really highly detailed photograph scans of actual things in real life, so that it looks really good in the video game aspect. It's basically just a picture and a layered picture so that it looks like it has a dimension to it when you go up to it in a video game kind of way. But it looks like it has a lot of dimension to it, and the lighting on it can change and all this other stuff. And it's basically just a photo scanned element that was taken from real life so that it can look really good in a video game engine. So these mega scans have come out, and like I said, there's a list that they already had that they pre-made, that they put into it. But there's also a way that you can scan things in life yourself. So if you've made some kind of prop for a film or whatever, you can actually use like a, I think it's your phone or like a camera. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but you can. No, it's well, maybe, but it's Unreal Engine uses it to scan the items. It might have some kind of plugin or some kind of third-party software to do it, but you can scan the items to get a really realistic look and a 3D look by scanning around it to basically bring in whatever you want into the gaming engine and make it look like that item. So if you're not a good animator, it's a way that you can still get a really good detailed thing or background or whatever into a gaming engine by scanning it in real life. So if you made a prop for a film and now you've decided you can't actually do it live action, one of the ways that you can still make it is turning it into a CGI animated film using something like Unreal Engine. And then you can still use any props or anything that you had in real life and scan them in to your virtual world. So then it can have those detailed environments or those detailed objects with the photorealism. There's also motion capture. If you have the ability or the funding to do that, that's getting cheaper. There's getting more options for it because of things like virtual reality and just filmmaking in general and virtual production. That's becoming more prominent. Motion capture cameras and motion capture setups are getting cheaper and cheaper. There's also studios that are renting that type of stuff out, and they're getting a little bit more competitive with their prices. It's still very expensive, I would say, but it is getting cheaper. It is getting more competitively priced. So as that continues, it might become more and more widely available, like how really good cameras and other sound equipment and stuff like that has started to become available for independent filmmakers. Stuff like this newer technology, it's starting to finally get a little bit more mainstream, and that's going to make it cheaper and more available, especially if a company like Blackmagic comes out with one that's a lot cheaper and still is highly capable of doing all of these things. So you can use motion capture to turn your actors into 3D CGI characters, which will capture their facial expressions and body movements realistically. You can see that in this image. She's kind of moving her mouth, she's kind of moving her eye. And the CGI character, while not exactly the same as what she's doing in real life, it's pretty close. And that's because the video game engine can capture a lot of that really well. Again, they might use some kind of third-party software for it. There's probably plugins that are better utilizing those types of things, but it's a way that you can do it without having to really animate as much, because you can just capture it kind of in real life. You can capture the body movements, you can capture the facial movements by utilizing this motion capture gear. And then you have a character that you just have to tweak around a little bit in the gaming engine to make that short film. The gaming engine also comes with what is called metahumans. And metahumans are easier to use, highly detailed and realistic, pre-made, customizable digital characters. They come pre-rigged for facial and body animation. I believe you can also add more rig to it if you want to make sure you can move stuff around. Rigging just means that there's like a point on the cheek, on the eyebrow, on the nose. And if you click that point and drag it around, you can shape the nose, you can shape the cheek, you can make it more concaved or convexed, or you can lower the eyebrow or raise it, make them look mad, sad, happy, whatever. And so they come pre-rigged, which is good because you don't need an animator to rig it for you, or I guess a rigging artist or whatever you call it to do that. It's already pre-rigged. And they come with a bunch of different facial customizations. So if you've ever played a video game like an RPG, then you'll know what I'm talking about when you can make a character selection and you can change a lot of aspects about their face. That's basically what this is on a much higher scale, on a much larger scale, and it's allowing animators and stuff like that to make these short films with these really realistic looking people that's really good graphics So it looks really good, and give a lot more realism to their facial expressions, facial movements, just from rigging alone. And then if you combine metahumans with the motion capture, you get really, really realistic looking humans in your animated project. There's still a lot that has to go into it, but it's a lot easier than having to animate it from scratch or making CGI characters from scratch, which is why a lot of independent filmmakers are starting to use it. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Unreal Engine 5 film, short film, whatever, you'll find a lot of fan films. I've seen a lot of Star Wars ones, of course, but there's also a lot more than that that have been coming out, actually starting to get noticed, because you can set up the camera wherever you want. It's a virtual camera. You can literally do whatever kind of movement you want. And you can set up the characters by either doing motion capture or manually animating them with that pre-rigged metahuman. And it looks very good and very well done because of the Unreal Engine and how realistic the stuff looks inside of that new gaming engine.
So obviously, like, it's becoming more and more accessible over the years, like just what it used to cost and how it used to look as soon as like 2 or 3 years ago has, well, like 5 years ago, let's say, has changed like a lot. So I would imagine that over time it will become more and more accessible and will be used more and more, especially.
Of course, and especially because they're the first to really, I don't know if they're the absolute first, but they're the one of the main first that bigger productions are starting to take notice and utilize for their animations and stuff, like virtual production sets. And so that means Unreal will be coming out with Unreal Engine 6 eventually. It could be 10 years from now, but they're of course going to be looking into filmmaking as another way to gain revenue on their engine instead of just gaming like they used to. And then other engines, I would imagine, will also take notice and start implementing things. There could be brand new engines that are made specifically just for filmmaking in the future. Who knows, but it's an emerging technology that is starting to get noticed and starting to be utilized by small independent teams because it is so easy to use. Of course, it's still difficult. You're still basically messing with a game and kind of creating a game and turning that into a film, but it's becoming easier and more accessible to people, and that's why it's starting to be utilized a lot more. And it's becoming popular very quickly because of how good it looks and how easy it is to do. And so it's starting to allow those smaller budgets to make professional grade entertainment. What looks like was made by something like Pixar, is now being able to be made by a few people because of these pre-scanned things and all of this stuff that adds together. And just because it's pre-scanned, the people, I believe, they said the metahumans, they actually scanned like, I don't remember how many, let's say thousands of different people's faces, and like took highly detailed scans so they can get all the details right. And then they are fully customizable to where you can make millions of different looks by changing how old they look, changing where the wrinkles are, changing their facial features or their structure of their face, how round or long their face is or how narrow, all these different things. These are all CGI animated characters that are scanned from real people and just combine different elements to make them look more realistic. So I would say this combined with virtual production can make more options for productions with larger budgets and smaller, because now we have the options to make these CGI short films or to bring in CGI to the background so that it's more realistic. And like I said, as it becomes more and more competitive and more things start to take notice and make it more available to the majority of people, to the mass market, especially, like I said, if Black Magic or some other company like that creates something for this technology that is for independent people, like how Black Magic did with the Cinema Pocket Camera Pro or whatever it was called, then it'll start to become more cheaper and easier to make professional looking films and animated films for the independent teams. If
Just
you have the
look at how
time, it's
cool-
definitely worth looking into and trying out, because Unreal Engine is free to use. It's even free to produce content with no royalties required until a project starts to earn past $1 million. So that's for
pretty
games.
sweet.
That's for games. I think it's for films too. I'm not absolutely 100% on that. I know it's for the gaming community. Say what?
Yeah, I would
There's
definitely
yeah, no, it's definitely
That is
free to
excellent.
use, and it's free to produce games.
Yeah,
Films, I'm not
awesome.
exactly sure. I'm pretty sure it's the same rules apply. And that's because they want everybody to use it, because they're not sure what's going to take off, what isn't. And they want to make it available to everybody. And that's how they make their money, is because after a project makes more than $1 million, then they take, I don't know what the chunk is, but it's probably pretty big. But I would say that's still an amazing deal if you are an independent filmmaker or an independent game developer, because you might not even make $1 million on your project. And so you might make 500,000 and just get to keep it all by using somebody else's technology that you use for free. So that's a really cool, and I would say client-friendly type of thing that they're doing.
I
However,
think it's great for character building.
what was that?
No, I think it's great for character building, because that's what I'm doing now. So I could, you could actually put a face of the character.
That's actually a really
Yeah.
good point. Yeah, you could do it, especially if
Mhm.
you're just doing kind of like concept art or something like that. You could utilize this technology to create a look for, like, this is how I saw it when I was writing it. This is the type of person I want to cast. They
Mhm.
look like this, or they look like that, or they look like this, that, whatever. And then you can try to cast people that look like that and actually show it. If you go to talent agents and stuff, you can be like, someone who looks sort of like this,
Like that.
brown eyes, brown
Mhm.
hair, big lips, whatever. And then they're like, oh, this, and that. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Thanks.
I definitely agree with that. You could use this for that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other use cases you could do with this type of technology, just to make it, even if you're not creating a short film itself, you can use it for concept art, for the background. You can just go in, create a world, take a few photos from different angles, and get an idea of how you want to shoot something, or make a shot list, or make a just the concept art of this is what it's going to look like. So even if you're not doing it in the engine, if you're not going to do it as an animation, you can still show it to pitch the investors when you're pitching, and just show them this. If you can't find anything online that looks like what you're going for, you're like, oh, this looks like what I'm going for. Then you can create it in the engine, and then take a picture of it from whatever angle you'd like and show them what you're thinking. And so, yeah, I think like it can start, if you take the time to learn it and take the time to really understand how it works, you could do your own concept art now. You could do your own kind of like, sort of like casting. You can kind of cast your own people. Like, obviously you still need to cast a real person, but you can figure out the look of that character by messing around with these types of settings and everything. So I see a lot of different many use cases that this can be used for filmmaking and for pre-production. And I definitely say anybody who's interested in film, especially independent filmmakers, keep this on your radar and maybe even test it out and learn it, because it is free to use. It does require a good computer, however, especially RAM, processor, and graphics card to be up to date, because it's, so much data in there. So that is something that you'd have
So
to
you're gonna have
invest
to
in.
make an investment in something either way. Like, it's not a completely free thing. You have to invest either in, when you're looking at equipment, you're gonna have to invest either in like a good processor, a good PC, good monitor, like quality equipment in that sense, if you're trying to save money on like film equipment, for example.
Yeah, if you're trying to use this for actually creating films, then you need to have really good computer hardware to run it properly and not crash it every time you're trying to edit something or every time you're trying to export it or render it. You want to be able to do all that through your computer, so you need some good hardware. And I don't know the exact specifications, you'd have to look that up, but you can easily do that by going to Unreal, Unreal's website. I think it's unrealengine.com. I don't know, maybe not, but go there, look it up. They'll have the specifications of what they think you need, to what the minimum are and what the recommended is for you to use this kind of software. Other than that, does anybody have anything to add or any questions about Unreal Engine 5 filmmaking? What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, let's try to make this controversial too. What can we say? You know, because we've been having some controversial conversations.
Games are doing the same thing movies are. That's what I'd say.
I'm joking.
I know, just kidding.
I did a photo. Well, I did another one of those cosplay photo shoots,
Mhm.
and I linked up with some of the photographers afterwards. And I go to one of the guy's house, and he, like, you know, he's got a big $500,000 house, and yeah, like he goes and we go downstairs to like his man cave, and he's got all these like figurines like all over the place, and you know, like I got my little Ghostbuster figure. You see what I did with that?
Yep.
He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm just a big kid, you know. He's got like the real like, detailed figurines and like statues and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, like on my free time, like I'll just like, you know, take photos of them for, you know, for practice and lighting experiments and stuff. So we had like an all-out photo shoot with some of his Marvel figurines. He had like a Sylvester Stallone, he had Iron Man, he had Bucky from the Avengers and stuff like that. But the thing I found that was like truly like amazing was the amount of detail in the figurines that they put into them now. I mean, this was an expensive figurine, and like, you know, while we were taking photos, I was like, man, like the light actually hits this figure and it bounces off the figure like it's like skin, you know. It's creepy. So like I took some we were taking some photos, and I like literally because I have a couple of like the Black Widow, and I pulled up some Scarlett Johansson pictures, and I was like, yo, this looks, like you can't tell the difference. I mean, we had that talk like the little Ghostbuster thing I did, like it's almost identical to the real Scarlett Johansson, even down to like, I mean, with the figures that I did, my biggest thing was like, you know, the hair gives it away. But this one, like the details on the hair are like so good that like you can't tell it apart from like real people.
Collectors, yeah, they tend to have like very detailed, like
Yeah,
expensive ones.
it was crazy. And I was like, at what point do they replace actors with these, you know, these really
Robot Chicken live action.
Oh man, imagine if Robot Chicken did it with those, like, man, that would be cool. Because Robot Chicken does it with like some really janky looking ones.
I posted the picture of the Scarlett Johansson one. I posted it on my Facebook, and some people like couldn't tell the difference. Like it was detailed to Scarlett Johansson down to the, she has like a little bump on her left cheek. They even had that on there. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like we don't even need Scarlett anymore. Like she can go kick rocks, and we can just keep making Black.
That's how Disney gets out of paying her.
Well, yeah, and also that they're doing their facial reconstruction stuff that's getting more and more advanced.
Oh yeah, like their rejuvenation ones, like making them look younger and stuff.
That one's still kind of janky.
No, but there's the Nick Fury one I thought was really well done.
I don't
in the
know.
last film.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. The more that they keep using that type of stuff, the more it's going to become more available. You know, that I would say it's still pretty far off. They've been using video game engine stuff and kind of that type of thing for a while now, but eventually it's now finally starting to get to the point where it's becoming a little bit more accessible and widely spread. And it's just going to continue further down that way where it's going to be easier and more accessible to everybody to have this really high grade looking equipment type stuff when really
Yeah,
they don't.
it's gotten to a point like before it was like, they would make like video. Like, I'll take video game like the Last of Us video game, and I was like, oh, okay, these are some really good graphics, but come to find out, like they're based on real actors and real people. I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually like actually people like based on these characters and stuff. Like I thought they were just kind of like made up, drawn up, and then they just like threw the little the effects on it and stuff. But no, like they're using like people's likenesses and features for these video games, and like going all out, like creating some of the best cinematic stuff, but it's in a video game. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, they've actually, that's why I've seen for video games, there's been more like larger stars and actors that usually wouldn't have been in games that now are coming to them because they can basically make them in the game. They can make a very close representation of that actual person for the character in the game, so people can instantly recognize them. Oh, that's John Connery or whatever.
John Connor.
Just a random person.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Harrison Ford's over there. Yeah.
That's the first one that came here. I'm not gonna tell us.
I think it's Sean Penn, and I was like, not Sean Penn.
Using their faces, using like The Last of Us, the faces were a set, and then the voices were different too. So it was like a set of face actors and then a set of voice actors. Like just imagine like going up to a person and being like, "Hey man, you don't sound like you do in the video game," and it's just like, it's not me in the video game.
Actually, there's another thing that's coming out that's becoming more popular. It's AI generated voice, and it's taking like it's taking samples of actual speaking, like if it was trying to imitate me, it's taking samples of my actual voice and then using that to digitally speak back in my voice to people. It still sounds a little bit weird right now.
No.
I would say it sounds weird as in like it doesn't sound real yet, but it's becoming more and more advanced in the way that it's starting to become a little bit hard to tell if it's AI generated voice or the actual person speaking.
That is terrifying to me. Imagine like you don't even know if the real person's talking or if it's a guy anymore.
No, you still do.
In the next few years, you might not.
I don't know. I would say it's the same as like Photoshop, where it's like you might take a photo of someone and say that they've been in this place that they weren't. It's like, yeah, but you can still tell. There's still going to be people that are able to spot it.
Say that to people who are deep faked and how realistic. Have you seen the ones in Tom Cruise? That's terrifying.
Yeah, but you can still tell it's
No,
fake.
you can't. There's a bunch of videos on TikTok of like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, something. It looks so real.
I'm talking about analyzing.
No, their faces.
No, but I'm saying you can still analyze it and see that it doesn't belong.
Yeah, but by the time, but not every time. That's the thing. To see it and it looks like him and it sounds like him. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously you can use it for that, but we're talking about for film's sake. That's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting that you'll be able to use that eventually, possibly too. You could just be sitting at your computer one day and just type in. Oh, there's also another thing that I've seen coming out, which is, I believe I've spoken about this before in these meetings, but AI generated imagery and artists, not artists, drawings, concept art, that type of stuff, art. AI generated art by you just basically type in what it is and then it comes up with several images based on that. I can't remember. I think it's called midjourney.
see, I'm telling you guys, AI is getting smarter and smarter. We're giving them the information. If they take over, that's on us. Just say.
basically you just type in stuff like it's a green thing with this kind of hand, with that kind of this, and you get more and more and more specific with it until it shows like the thing that you're actually going for, you know? And it allows, like for filmmaking sake, it would allow people to make concept art without actually having any kind of artistic capability. I can't draw, so I would be super glad to be able to just type in what I'm looking for and come up with something to make it look like the concept art that I'm going for, and then show it to people like, here's what I'm going for. Even if I hire a concept artist later, I can show them basically exactly what I'm going for so they can make something similar, instead of having to go through the trial and error process so long with an actual other person. So yeah, there's a lot of technologies coming out. That's why I wanted to just bring that all up this semester, because it's our last one. So I bring up these things that are coming out that's advancing and that's becoming more popular and more widely spread, so that these things can be thought of and utilized when you are going to do pre-production or production for a film. You can take some of this into account or look into it if you'd like, to see like what you might be able to use.
Those look cool as hell.
Right, and it's all AI generated, so it's crazy. Like,
So cool.
they look really cool,
Now it's
and it's just typing it in. What's cool?
when they take over, it's not gonna be as cool.
Well, it's still a person typing in what they want the AI to generate, but it's basically just like dinosaurs walking through a field and a giant open doorway with a guy in blue walking across, and then it just comes up with whatever, and then you're like, oh no, I want it to be a little more flowy, let me add that word, and you just keep changing the wording until you get exactly what you were looking for. It's really cool.
I don't know. The artist, the modern day artist is slowly but surely losing this war against.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
They're taking their jobs.
Hey, sorry,
AI
artists.
That's literally all we have.
Before you study it, and then
I don't know.
Right?
I've heard both
That's
arguments on
literally
that.
all
I've
we
heard some
have.
artists say they're afraid because they're afraid of it taking over, but I've heard others be like, "Oh, this is awesome. We can utilize this to get a starting point, or to like help us make the art even better."
Well, yeah, the problem is when you're competing against an AI painting, because it's not a fair fight though, and people are submitting them into like festivals and stuff. It's like, well, of course that could do it. It's a supercomputer.
Yeah, but the other thing about it is it's very hard to get exactly what you were looking for because it's so particular with the wording. You still can, but it's drawing the inspiration from somewhere, and you have to very, very specifically articulate what you're trying to get it to do. So I think there might be mid-journey artists that specifically know how to use it to the best of their ability, so you can kind of explain what you want. They can come back with a few variations of the same project in an instant because they know exactly what words to put in to get what you're looking for. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, but that kind of sets you up because you learn. Anybody. It's different from like being able to have that hand-eye coordination versus being able to program a computer to do certain things. Like anybody can learn how to program a computer to do what it wants it to do. So it goes up. You get all these art. Put all this stuff on Google, build a portfolio. Like, oh, you're the great. Like I'm the greatest of all time, and then some asshole comes and is like, oh, what are you gonna do without your artificial intelligence? Ha, you're a phony. You're a big
Yeah.
I mean, I've been hearing that argument with a lot of people that work in tech. Like, I have a friend who's a programmer, and he's talking about how, like, back with the stuff that he had to learn, now these people, like, there's pre-made stuff for everything. So really what they actually have to learn is a lot of shortcuts and a lot of pre-made programs and all that stuff. And it doesn't mean they're not good programmers, but it kind of is like, oh, I want to see you take away all your pre-made stuff if you're actually that good or whatever. It is scary. It is kind of like hard because like we're never going to be as talented as the people that came before us, because the people that came before us had a lot more work to do and had to work a lot harder to get to that point. So that's an argument, but technology is growing. As
I
long
heard
as it's
that
not taking
AI
over the
is.
world, I'm okay with it.
I heard that AI is actually an imitation of the human's work. So at the end of the day, they're mimicking us. So we
As long as
actually,
they're not
Yeah.
enslaving us, I'm okay.
right.
It's when they get to that point that I'm like, yep, I knew it.
No, but like I remember like growing up in school, like taking art class. That was like the one class I always shined in because I could draw.
Now you're
Every
losing
class,
to a supercomputer. Congratulations.
I was the star, and the teacher would he or she would always have like faith. Oh, you're gonna do whatever it is. You're gonna do a good job, and that stuff. Everybody, oh, you can draw, you can draw. Now it's gonna be like everybody's like printing stuff out, and like I can do that too, and it's like okay,
Cheat sheet.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I like it because I can't draw. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It helps me to illustrate my ideas without having to pay a bunch of money to somebody or spend too much time figuring it out with somebody or having to like draw a crappy stick figure image myself and hope that people get what I'm going for. Now
This
I
is
might be
really
able to
cool.
use something like this to show the composition and the framing and whatever else, the concept art, to get some shot list ideas, to get some concept art ideas across to people who are working with me on
it,
it.
it, it goes back to what do you call it when I was taking when the DSLR revolution started and I was in film school and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to do some photography and stuff, and I was hanging out with the photography guys. They take a picture and they do all this work and they put all these filters in there to make it look like an oil painting. Like there's a specific style for that to make it's not airbrush, it's not technically airbrush, but it's like a style that of lighting that you use, and then when you put all the filters on there, it looks like it's like an oil painting or something like that, right? And I'm
Right.
like, well, photographers do all that work to make an actual photo look like a painting. When there's artists out there that do all the work to make the painting look like a photo, it's like we're
No one's ever satisfied with anything. That's just the truth.
yeah. I was like, I see these artists that do like they call it the super I can't remember. It's like super hyper realism, where it's like the photo, like they paint it so detailed that it looks identical to a photograph. And I'm like, you did all that work, but you could have just pulled your phone out and you spent weeks on that thing and just pull your phone out and take a picture and it looks exactly
It's the process, man. It's the process.
Same thing with the photographers. I'm like, you guys spend all that time trying to make the photo look like a painting. You could, then you have this painter that did the same thing with a paint. I was like, I just don't understand where.
It's cooler though. It's cooler that I turned a picture.
I don't know. I
into
feel
a
like
painting.
if you were looking at it, if you spent like all your time looking at that kind of thing, I think you could probably notice differences. But it'd be very subtle. Like us with film, like I don't think people notice as many little details and minute things that we would notice analyzing a film if they're just watching it.
It's very annoying because now that we're studying more and now that we know more, we can't say anything while watching a movie with friends or family. It's like, I don't know. I think, it's just because you study film. You guys are all like analyzing everything.
No, it's because it's a bad story plot.
It's a bad plot. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Oh, you're just saying that because you study film. Oh.
Who knows? With the way AI is going, maybe one day we'll just type in, I want a movie like this, and it'll create it for us. Movie where character dies at the end. Let's see what this thing comes up with.
Make it dramatic.
Like a few years are over. Audio of me talking about that. I'm in prison before because I was there or something.
You're dead by that time.
You don't take over.
All right, anyway. I just thought I'd bring that up because it is like emerging technology and that could definitely be utilized for filmmaking, across Unreal Engine, virtual production, midjourney, the AI voice. AI voice is still very new and very, I haven't seen it for independent stuff, but midjourney is allowing people to use it. I've seen a lot of independent filmmakers use it because it's on like its trial period or whatever. So they're using it for concept art or for shot listing and for storyboarding and stuff like that instead of drawing it by hand or getting somebody else to do it. And from what they say, it's hard, it takes some time to get to learn how to use it. But once you do, you can start to create some really cool looking things and exactly like what you want. And so it can definitely help with filmmaking. And I always look at all these new kind of technologies as how could I use that if I wanted to use it for film, or if I wanted to use it for something else I'm trying to do. How could I use this to benefit me? If nothing comes up, then oh well. But like Gabe was saying with the metahumans, using that just to kind of almost cast your actor before you even actually have somebody, just so you can send that out to actors and say, if you look anything like this, instead of saying brown-eyed, brown-haired girl, you can actually show a picture more closely resembling what that means. If you're talking about this girl, this girl, this girl, this girl, they all have brown eyes and brown hair, but they all have different skin tones, different facial structures. So which one are you trying to look for? Oh, there is another one, brown-eyed, brown hair. So, these two look similar, but they're different. And so you could use those to try to help get an actor or an actress that looks very close to that look.
Yeah, but we also got to be careful to not get too stuck on the AI and be like not.
Just use the tools as tools,
Yeah.
basically. Use them to help you be creative, help you to get your vision across to investors when you're pitching it, to producers when you're trying to get them on board, with your team that's already working with you. You have a cinematographer, you have a casting agent or a casting director, and you're trying to show them, the kind of look you're going for. Without explaining it, you can now, if you want, create something that looks like the kind of person that you're trying to do, and then send that to them instead. So that's what I'm meaning. You just, all these new technologies that I'm talking about, just use them how you see fit and in whatever form you'd like to help benefit you in filmmaking, to help make it cheaper and easier to get your vision across, or just to make sure it's very specific and particular to what you're looking for and what you want, because you can definitely spend the time doing this, and it'd be free because it is a free program. And even if it was costing $50, $100 or whatever, you could use that, spend a lot of time in development so you can get exactly what you want when you get to production. Because when you get to the production part, when you get to post-production, production, and beyond, that's the part that starts to get really expensive and hard to do if you haven't planned anything out. So now that these new technologies are coming available, it makes it easier to get a lot of things done in development and in pre-production, so that you can plan better and utilize all these tools to get a better product at the end. All right, what we're studying next time is going to be crowdfunding campaign marketing. We talked about this a bit. Well, we've talked about it quite a lot actually, but we'll go back into it a little bit. Let's talk about more specific things based on just crowdfunding. So if you're trying to crowdfund, you obviously have to market that you are crowdfunding, that you're trying to run a crowdfunding campaign. And so we'll talk about that on Thursday. Creative marketing, that doesn't have too much into it. I have found a few things that were really interesting that I want to share, but creative marketing is basically just finding a creative way to market to people to draw interest. It's kind of the same thing as if you're trying to do viral marketing, and you're going to use creative marketing within it to try to make something creative and interesting that people will want to share and make your viral marketing attempt more achievable. And then sizzle reels, also known as highlight reels. And I don't know, they have a ton of other names for it, but we'll talk about all that Thursday. Remember, guys, we have those 4 exercises that are due December 1st. Still December 1st. And the other thing I wanted to say is we're not going to have any studies next week because it's Thanksgiving week. So we'll have a meeting this Thursday on the 17th. And then after that, the next meeting won't be until the 28th.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna have Thursday, and then we're only gonna see you guys once we're all a little fatter.
All right, well, good luck. Have fun. See you then.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
I say thanks. I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm glad you liked it. I mean, I appreciate that you liked it.
Good
All right,
class.
guys. Have a good night and have a good
All
week.
right. Okay, thanks. All right, good night.
Good night.